Gaurav, what happens starting 12:30 p.m.? Is there a plan in place by the Indian embassy, by the Indian authorities on the ground for the rapid evacuation? We understand that this ceasefire will basically, reasonably, possibly be for the entire day. So is there a plan in place to move everyone out?
Shiv, from what I've been given to believe, buses are already in place. In fact, buses were in place for the past 2 days. The anticipation was this corridor would have worked out earlier. India was repeatedly requesting both Russia and Ukraine to help enable Indian students come out of here. And of course, also on the larger picture of ceasefire and a negotiated settlement of outstanding issues. But if we were to specifically talk about this, so there are 2 or 3 Indian officials, Indian embassy officials here, while they are in Kiev, who've moved to Sumi or close to Sumi. There's a village close to Sumi where they've already moved with the buses. They are on standby. They'll get. Last time everyone was asked to get to Babayev and Peshochin. An SMS will go out or a WhatsApp message. There is a WhatsApp group that's been created of Indian students who have registered with the embassy and who are trapped in these pockets of battle. They will be informed on those WhatsApp groups. This is where you need to get to. The moment they get an all clear, they'll be in those buses and move to the nearest safe area. Whether that safe area, according to the official on ground, is Kyiv or Belgorod border, the Russian border, which is just a couple of hours away, is a decision that will be taken on ground given the circumstances. In some instances, it wasn't successful. But in Kharkiv, it was extremely successful, and the government sources did say that Kharkiv doesn't have any Indian students who are registered with them, but Kharkiv region does. Again, when these children are out of Sumi, then at least India will breathe a sigh of relief, because then out of the main pockets of battle, most people are out of. If they are still there in Kiev, they can easily move out anytime. Moving out of Kiev for non-combatants to the Lviv border is not an issue. But as Geeta will tell us better, the problem arises once you get to the border.
Yes.
Given the long queues that are there, people have been stranded for days, especially at the Polish at the border with Poland. But some other borders are relatively easier to cross over. So problems are being faced. That Indian student I spoke to, Harjot, he tried to take the taxi, the land route, and he tried to go by road, and he was shot at and injured. Fortunately, he too now is out of harm's way. But there are problems aplenty. This ceasefire is a major shot in the arm in that effort to get all children out of the strife-torn areas of Ukraine, Shiv.
We're getting a sense already, because our reporters are already on the ball. They're speaking to all the voices that matter. India Today's Poulomi Saha is plugged into NATO right now. She's getting, a view from NATO, obviously, and it's not, not unsurprising, not surprising at all, Geeta, to bring you in, that many NATO countries don't really believe in this ceasefire. They see this as eyewash. They see this as a kind of, message for the world. Temperatures are already up after Secretary of State Blinken said that he's greenlit NATO fighter jets for the fight in Ukraine. So, are you surprised that NATO countries like Germany, France are a little incredulous about this ceasefire, Geeta? They say that, we'll believe it when we see it.
Well, they ought to be, because the last time they said there is going to be a humanitarian corridor, there was none. In fact, what we saw in Irpin was absolutely heartbreaking. The fact that now civilian casualties are on the rise is certainly a concern. And for Moscow should be a concern, because there's no going back from this one, Shiv. There is no taking back the loss of lives. And that's the reason why if there is a corridor or ceasefire that has been announced by Moscow, we will, like the NATO countries are saying, let's wait and see what really happens today. And if there are no bomb shellings, no explosions, no attacks, no ground forces attacking civilians, then it will be a believable thing. But for now, the day has just begun. We'll keep bringing you the reports on the ground as to whether if Moscow is in violation of its own word or not.
Okay, 54 minutes is when, 54 minutes, Gaurav, is by which time the ceasefire comes into effect. But, as we've seen from all the pictures that you and Geeta have been sending us since this morning, Gaurav, the actual combat is not stopping. In fact, it's escalating in different parts. So I'm assuming that with this ceasefire, specifically in the urban pockets of where these civilians are, in and around those cities perhaps, and in the nearby areas, the actual military activity is going to continue.
Shiv, from late last night, there was an intensification in operations, especially in Kherson, which anyway was in Russian control, but they bombed the airfield because the apprehension was those airfields could be exploited in these seesaw pitched battles that are happening. Kharkiv again was targeted by missiles. In Luhansk, the information is that there was a counter-attack from the Ukrainian forces where they've taken some pockets that remained with the Russians post-2014 or Russian-backed administration since 2014. So pitched battles do continue in some areas. But, in Mariupol, for example, if the ceasefire actually works, it didn't last time, but if it works, it would help a lot of people come out of there who are desperate. They're without electricity, without water, without medicines, and senior citizens and pregnant women especially. The effort is to get them out as quickly as possible, get them to safer areas. India talks more about Sumi and Kharkiv because we have Indian children who are studying there. But as far as locals are concerned, after what happened yesterday in Irpin and Ostomel and in Bucha, there is apprehension that if that escalation takes place, there will be tremendous loss of civilian lives, because these are actually the features or the pockets that actually defend Kyiv from the attack from the north and the northwest, Shiv. And these are pockets that are systematically being flattened, including civilian areas being targeted by the advancing Russian columns. Pictures of the devastation in Irpin, for example, or the destruction in Bucha are viral across Ukraine. And it's actually led to heart sinking in the manner in which the battle is now coming close to the heart of this capital, Kiev, Shiv.
So speaking specifically of Kyiv, Geeta, the city has been under siege or almost under siege for quite a few days now. That military convoy, the bombing of the big suburbs outside Kyiv. We saw the war front reporting yesterday from Irpin. A Hostomel has been struck from the air as well. Are you getting the sense, you and Gaurav getting the sense, Geeta, that things are closing in now on Kyiv? The ceasefire has been called in Kyiv as well, but the actual siege doesn't change.
Well, absolutely. Our reports clearly spell that out, Shiv. The moment they start putting sandbags in the entry and exits of subway stations at the heart of Kyiv city, that's Freedom Square. The moment you have the moment you have preparedness to blow up the bridges, the flyovers and bridges, and we'll show you that today as well. The flyovers and bridges that connect Kyiv city, the capital, to other parts and surrounding cities. There is deployment there, Shiv, in case Russian forces really try to come in from those flyovers. The flyovers will be blown up. So they are preparing. They're preparing because they fear that the Russians are inching closer. And there is only that much that Ukrainians can do. And I keep saying this over and over again and can't emphasize that the NATO and the West have been promising all the ammo and aircraft, jet aircraft, quite a few of them. But unless and until there is, and we know that it will lead to escalation, but unless and until they walk the talk on defending Ukraine, Ukraine cannot defend herself all alone.
Ukraine cannot defend itself all alone. The geopolitical temperatures have been steadily rising. The fact that NATO is sitting on the fence, not really knowing what to do. The United States sending out a signal that they've cleared NATO to supply aircraft to Ukraine. All of this has ratcheted up the volatility of this situation right now. And probably also, Gaurav, correct me if I'm wrong, provided, Russia and Moscow and Putin with another avenue for escalation. I don't know. My personal view is I don't think any of these NATO countries even want to send fighter jets. Each country has its own issues. I don't think they want to send fighter jets, into the Ukraine mix. But by declaring that NATO has the green light, has US approval to do so, could give Russia its next big reason to escalate tensions.
Shiv, you've hit the nail on its head. That's exactly what appears to be happening in this blow-hot, blow-cold fighter jet conversation that's been happening between United States, President Zelensky and Poland. For example, initially it was said that the MiG-29s that Poland has no longer flying, but has in its inventory, and these are not mothballed from what a Ukrainian officer told me. He said that these are MiG-29s that the Air Force of Poland has and operates. If they were to give these MiG-29s with their weapons to Ukraine, Poland wants America to give them the F-16s and the F-35s. And America says we will consider that. But then Poland would directly then be in conflict with Russia. And would Poland want to take that? And that is why initially when several countries said that yes, they have the Soviet era fighter jets, and yes, they're open to the idea of giving those fighter jets to Ukraine, there has been very furious backpedaling. And whatever does President Putin, Biden saying that I've greenlit the supply of aircraft mean, will Poland then give its MiG-29s to Ukraine with the weapons? Pilots went to Ukraine, from Ukraine to Poland, we are told, and in some instances they returned, in some instances they're still waiting. 70 pilots, we are told, had gone to Poland to pick up the MiG-29s. But are there 70 MiG-29s that Poland would want to give to Ukraine immediately? Which are the other countries that want to do that, especially at a time when Russia is saying this would be seen as an act of war? So there appears to be some furious backpedaling. Shiv, if I may, yes. I've also been told that the president of Ukraine has now asked the West to give them UCAVs or unmanned combat aerial vehicles and kamikaze drones in large numbers so that they can take on the Russian forces that are moving in. While this demand has been made, how quickly will this demand be fulfilled remains the question, and will Ukraine be able to hold on to a Russian attack till that time? Point 2, point 3, a large number of anti-tank guided missiles and surface-to-air missiles and defensive weapons continue to flow in, because that's a commitment that's been made. That's a commitment that's been fulfilled. If you recall the bunker that we were in last night with that officer, the Ukrainian army officer, that had those ATGM and SAM systems and RPGs. A large number of RPGs have already come in and are being distributed, not just in areas where the fighting is happening, but also the second and the third line of defense. Shiv.
Gaurav, stay with me if you are able to. I also want to get in a voice from someone, who's been doing a lot of coordination with students, especially in Sumi and Kharkiv over the last few days. He's been tirelessly, helping students, get from one place to another, with whatever limited resources and connect that he has from the ground here in India. Major Samar Tur is a former UN peacekeeper. He's an Indian Army veteran. Major Tur, welcome. Good news about this ceasefire. What do you think? How are you seeing it? How are you receiving this news? I know you've been in touch with many students, Major Tur, in Sumi and elsewhere. Ceasefire being announced by Russia there now.
Well, Shiv, as far as the ceasefire talks were happening, they were happening for the past 4 days, in which Russia had definitely stopped the shelling from its side. The problem that was being actually faced was that there is no proper communication structure left in the Ukrainian political regime as to who is going to pass down the orders, who's going to ensure that the particular order is going to be implemented and adhered to. So basically there was a lot of chaos, and there has been involvement of, the main involvement has been of the Indian embassy in terms of pulling out the Indian students in Sumi. And the main reason is that these children are now out of food, and to have water, they are surviving on snow. They've been collecting snow in buckets from the rooftops, getting the buckets down, melting the water, and then sipping onto water. It has come down to that desperation. And another issue that is being faced in Sumi is the locals have been armed. So the locals being armed, they actually destroyed all the water points in the city day before yesterday, and all the electricity is also being cut off in most of the hostels. So as a result, it is not only a problem with the Ukrainian administrative communication structure, but the locals are also being armed. So as a result, the threat that is looming is everywhere, at every corner for the students. I've been talking to them, I've been counseling them on video,
Yeah.
I've been passing them very crucial instructions. And as we speak right now, live on real time, I think this is the first indicator that is going to go out via India Today to the audience that the evacuation is in process as we speak. I cannot tell you the further details due to security reasons. But what I'm telling is that the situation has been stretched to a point where children are now being affected psychologically. They are losing out on patience. They are becoming restless. So probably at the right time, the Indian embassy and the Indian government has come into play with coordination with me and my whole team. And as a result, last night around 400 students have reached Romania. So majority of the students have now reached or have entered into Romania, Poland, Hungary or Slovakia. So the only battle that is left is the children of Sumi. And in this, let me inform you, there are 29 Bangladeshi students. There are 11 Pakistani students. There are 363 Nigerians, 4 Angolans and 2 Rwandan students and 1 French girl. So the pressure is immense at both the sides to get these kids out. All the foreign, I got a call day before yesterday evening by the Bangladeshi ambassador to Poland, Miss Laila Hussain. So she called me up and she said that Major Sama, what are we doing on ground? I said, ma'am, all communications have been made from all the consulates from Russia to the other side to Ukraine. But now the matter of fact is, when will it be formalized in the Ukraine political regime and how will the orders be passed down to the last soldier present in Sumi to have these implemented? So as of now, we have also contacted Red Cross. So Red Cross is catering to children's medicines and provision of sanitary pads, and whoever have asthma or very allergic ailments, they are catering to their medicines as of now.
Okay, let me get a word in. Gaurav Sawant has been, he's been closest to all these conversations that have been happening. Gaurav, so a sense coming in that the Indian embassy, the Indian government, has managed to pull this off at the right time. This was a situation that was definitely escalating, with the pictures becoming more and more aggressive and tense and the situation clearly deteriorating in Ukraine. Perhaps this ceasefire has been managed at precisely the right time. Any later than this, perhaps the Indian government would have not really been able to guarantee the safety of those students.
Shiv, it's an uphill task. There's constant communication that is on. I'm in touch with officials of the embassy and I'm in touch with some of the students. And, till late last night, the information that I had received was, and it is now being confirmed by one of the students, they're saying that they've been told that the coordination is happening from Poltava city. Indian embassy officials are at Poltava city, and this is where they're trying that as soon as this green light comes, they're in touch with students on multiple WhatsApp groups, those who are in Sumi, and these students have been told that the moment they give a green light on these WhatsApp groups, they need to come to the assembly point where students have been asked to assemble, and then those who are stranded in Sumi will be taken to the western borders via Poltava. The timing, of course, will be given only when there is an all clear from all sides. Like Major Tur was also mentioning very correctly, coordination is happening at 3 levels. One, between our ambassadors are talking to Russia and Ukraine. Apart from that, there's coordination that's happening on the ground level, that our ambassador here in Ukraine is talking to officials on ground. The defense attaché is in touch with officers who are fighting, and there's coordination with the Red Cross because multiple agencies are involved to ensure numbers of buses, Indian flag displayed on them, saying that there are non-combatants. Even then, these buses are checked and frisked. Those on board are frisked. So it is a long coordinated effort that is on, and hopefully soon, fingers crossed, Shiv, hopefully soon they will be able to get these children as soon as all sides agree. Russia has announced, Ukraine has to be ready. Ukraine also is in picture. Red Cross is in picture. Indian Embassy is in picture. They just now need to move in, retrieve these children and get them out of harm's way.
Gaurav and Major Samar, thanks for being with me for the moment. If you're able to, please continue to stay with me. It's the big development coming in from Ukraine at this time. A limited day-long ceasefire that kicks in within the next 39 minutes. 39 minutes from now, a 4-city ceasefire will kick into action. Indian diplomacy, Indian pressure has a big hand in this specific ceasefire called in the 4 cities of Kyiv, Sumy, Kharkiv and Mariupol. Gaurav Sawant and his team reporting from all of these cities. Back with much more. We'll get you updates from the ground. Stay with India Today's non-stop coverage. Day 12 of the Ukraine invasion.
Все разрушено просто.
Привет русским братикам, блядь.
Пидорасы.